Oh, disclaimer, the opinions of the host, guests, and callers and anyone who comments are not representative of the opinions of Mr. Singer, Singer's employer, or anyone associated with Gloves Off. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gloves Off with David Singer. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, we're in a completely different setting today from last week. I don't have the beautiful view that I did last week, but some things have to change. And the reason that we're in this new bunker, and I call it my bunker, is because as with the city of Miami that has the crazy Joe, Palmetto Bay has its own crazy councilman called Insane Cody. Mr. Cody, if anybody knows, is a councilman in Palmetto Bay, has basically threatened my employer, threatened me. He went after my son, my 12-year-old son, during the election about 2 years ago. I guess it's almost 2 years, 1.5 years ago. So we decided that we'd move into a bunker and thereby taking my employer out of the equation and moving someplace safe, because we don't know what Insane Cody will ever do if he finds out where we're broadcasting from. So yes, we're in a bunker in a different location. Actually, I like this location even better. It's actually easier with the lighting and setting up the cameras. Anyway, as I said, he was sent emails threatening me, my employer, and my child. As you guys can remember, last year I was broadcasting from the community newspapers, but apparently Mr. Cody and Grant Miller have a rather strange relationship. Mr. Cody seems to write a lot of what Grant Miller puts out on the community newspapers. So basically, that relationship ended. But we're in a new location. We're not leaving anytime soon. We'll have a different background every week because we're getting a green screen, so you don't have to look at this boring background behind me. Mr. Cody, he lost his wife. He lost his occupation, he lost his health, and he lost his house. So he's got nothing to lose in life. That's why he focuses on me all the time, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. He lost his occupation because he broke the law. He was arrested. He hasn't had a job in his chosen profession for about 8 years. His house is being foreclosed on because he hasn't paid his mortgage in 8 to 9 years. So I guess I'm Mr. Cody's new hobby, which is fine. As I said last week, I have a book all about Mr. Cody and his loss of his law license, his arrest, his craziness. I keep everything documented because, as I've said previously, I have a couple of lawsuits going against Mr. Cody, personal lawsuits. What's interesting is that the village of Palmetto Bay is defending Mr. Cody. It's the first time that the village has ever had to defend a council member for bringing in 2 lawsuits to the village of Palmetto Bay. So he has set a record on lawsuits that he personally has brought into the village of Palmetto Bay. And unfortunately, the village of Palmetto Bay are paying for his attorney's fees. So the residents, because of Mr. Cody's behavior, the residents are now paying for Mr. Cody's behavior and defending him against the lawsuits that I brought forward. He's not a good guy. He still pretends he's an attorney. He's backed by Mayor Cunningham. He's been backed by Mayor Cunningham since the election. It goes to speak about Mayor Cunningham's morals, which we'll talk about in a couple seconds after I bring my buddy Moe in. Once again, it's a new location. Every municipality has to have somebody crazy. And as I said, Palmetto Bay has Mr. Insane Cody, who likes to threaten people. And by the way, I'm not the only person he's threatened. He has a tendency to threaten a lot of people. He's just not a good guy. He's a little whacked. So let me start talking about today. I'd like to talk about my guest, so we can talk a little bit more about Mr. Cody, Councilman Steve Cody, who thinks he's an artist or thinks he's a children's book writer. Both is basically the BS that comes out of his mouth. So today I want to bring back, I have brought back my buddy Moe, who we're going to discuss Mayor Cunningham, Ron DeSantis. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade. We have a full agenda today to talk about, and I'm sure I'll be dropping in some more comments about Steve Cody along the way.
I would like to ask my first question. So for all the viewers out there that may not know exactly who Steve Cody is, do you want to just take a minute and explain who Steve Cody is?
Yeah. They were terrified that I would be reelected a councilman in Village of Palmetto Bay because I was trying to seek transparency, accountability. I was trying to tell the truth. And so Mayor Cunningham and a couple of residents who did not like the fact that I was telling the truth basically sought out Steve Cody to run against me. I think I lost by about 400 votes due to the fact that Mayor Cunningham was backing him. I guess they raised a lot of money for him to run against me, which I got no problem with. He's a disbarred. I guess it's disbarred now because it's been 8 years since he practiced because he broke the law and he was arrested. Basically, he's a councilman. He's a councilman who has an obsession with me. It's kind of interesting. Well, he's got nothing better to do. He's not working, so you know what the hell. And his house is in foreclosure. So instead of packing all his personal belongings to get ready to get kicked out of his house, I guess I'm the flavor of the week.
Well, he also seems to be very creative. I'm not sure if the audience knows, but he actually had a Facebook post about you that you're probably aware of. If we can get that on the screen. Yep. So apparently Steve Cody's actually pretty entertaining. I got to admit, he's got some talent. I found this post personally hilarious. So for those of you who didn't actually get to read the post, on top of this, he actually said, quote unquote, "Since David Singer, my former opponent and guy who's suing me, lost his Facebook Live show again, I hear he's pouring himself into his boy band together. He recently held a jam session at his house while he bribed his audience with copious amounts of booze to get them to show up. Here's the cover of the live performance album, Gloves Off with David Singer." So you got to admit, he is actually pretty creative.
You know, what's interesting that I don't exactly think I look like that.
He was pretty generous with your legs.
You know, yeah, it looks a little fat to me. And number one is I don't think I've ever worn a dress or wanted to wear a dress before. He thinks he's talented. You know, I just like the fact that he's totally obsessed with me. He literally does a lot more advertising for my show than I could ever do. He actually advertises for my band, which is great because we'll be playing at certain places. So I hope he continues on Facebook to put that stuff out there because, you know, everybody basically knows what kind of guy he is.
Yeah, well, I found it kind of strange you called you all a boy band. I think you're a little bit too old to be in a boy band.
Yeah, and we all play musical. We all play musical instruments. I don't think boy bands play actually musical instruments. The guy's a little whacked.
It was a little entertaining to me. I purposely liked, Facebook Unalive and the.
Yeah, what's funny is he put that out last week and he says I lost my show, but here I am right now with you as a guest on my show. So I guess I didn't lose it for long. You know, this is what happens when you have to hide in a bunker. And that's one of the reasons that we're here in the bunker is Mr. Cody, because you never know what he's going to do.
I'm looking forward to his next post about you.
You never ever know what Steve Cody's actions are going to be. Unfortunately, I'm suing him. I probably won't get it. I probably will be awarded a lot of money, but since he's broke, I probably won't. I won't actually get a dime from him. A lot of other people, are ahead of me as far as getting money. I think he owes the IRS $200,000-$400,000. So I guess they take priority over me. But once again, that's who the Village of Palmetto Bay elected. That's who's representing them. Good luck to them. It shows what kind of person Mayor Cunningham is. So what are we talking about? Oh, we got one. Okay, so pop up the picture of Mayor Cunningham at the rally for Governor Ron DeSantis. Do we have that picture anywhere? Anywhere? We're waiting for the picture. We're waiting for the picture. Okay. So anyway, apparently, Governor Ron DeSantis had a rally last week, and Mayor Karyn Cunningham was sitting up. There she is. She's sitting 2 seats away from Ron DeSantis. Okay, so it's amazing that and I got no. You know what? What's interesting about me is I think Ron DeSantis has done a couple of things that I really like. I like the way he's an environmentalist. He's really gone on and done some good work as far as the Everglades is concerned and passed some bills. But he's also on the other side of it. His stance, he's really, really right wing. And he's, anti-abortion, which we'll talk about a little bit in a second. He's anti-unions. And he talked a lot about being anti-union at the rally. He's really, really far right. And I just don't get people that are either far right or far left, but that's just my own opinion. Anyway, so she went to this rally for him, which is interesting because she was a Republican before she ran for office. Then she switched to become a Democrat so she could win office. She's basically done anything to get reelected. She's like the ultimate flip-flopper in public, and she does this constantly. She preaches for children, women's rights, education, teachers, unions, and women's rights. And then she basically sits on DeSantis's lap during his rally and next to him at his table. And during this all going on, she was applauding all his policies. Now, how you can sit there and be as liberal as she says she is, okay, because she's constantly preaching how liberal she is, and then sit there and sit on basically DeSantis's lap during one of his rallies. Once again, it's beyond comprehension to me. She's like a chameleon. Anybody she's with, basically, she changes the color of her skin to fit the moment. She actually attended the rally this last week when anybody else from Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Dade County, Cutler Bay, anybody who was a Democrat did not attend. I mean, the mayor didn't attend. The councilmen didn't attend that were Democrats. They just knew not to attend the rally because they were all Democrats. She works for the United Teachers of Dade, which is another surprising fact, that she would sit there and go to a DeSantis rally, since DeSantis is extremely anti-union and was ripping unions at the rally. I mean, he spoke, I think, for 15 or 20 minutes against unions.
Yeah, now one could say and argue that being a mayor, it's a bipartisan seat. It doesn't have a political agenda. It's not supposed to be left or right. Could one argue that she is there just representing? Nobody
else did. I mean, the thing is that nobody else did. No other Democrats sat at his main table. Okay. No other Democrat, nobody from the United Teachers of Dade would attend a rally for DeSantis. Right. She works. She's supposed to work for United Teachers of Dade. Literally, how can you sit there and attend a rally that the guy's anti-union, unless you're a spy, okay, and literally attend like that? I mean, she basically stands for nothing.
So you're saying she's pandering to DeSantis?
She's pandering to everybody. Okay. She is amazing. Listen, she sits there and she takes pictures for residents. She changes her opinions on her stories based on who she talks to. That's just the way Karyn Cunningham is. I mean, she's not an honest person with anybody. She has no morals. I mean, this is a woman who's had affairs with married men. I mean, anybody who's had their house, their family broken apart, because of affairs and children who have, and I was one of them.
These are facts.
Yes.
This is okay.
Okay. And I was one of them. My parents had an affair and it destroyed our family. And she's gone into families and broken them apart. I mean, this is the kind of person she is. This is and she tries to get around it all by sitting there literally taking a bunch of pictures with residents and smiling. She's done nothing to improve. She's done nothing to improve the village of Palmetto Bay since there. She just sent out it's funny. She just sent out a text message to everybody with a video saying that she's lowered taxes in the village of Palmetto Bay. And when in fact, what she's done is she's voted for every single tax increase that Palmetto Bay's ever had. Taxes in Palmetto Bay are higher now than they've ever been. And this is during a time of inflation. And this is at a time where people can't afford to put gas in their car. This is at a time where people are having a hard time and they're struggling to pay their mortgage. And she's constantly raised taxes. And for what? So you can put a lot of PR out? I mean, I bet you, if you look at Palmetto Bay right now, we've tripled, quadrupled the amount of money we spend on PR that is because she's running for office. And listen, no residents want to pay for PR for a city. We just don't want it.
So why?
I don't want it.
So how did she get elected if all these things are true and she's as evil as you say she is?
Because
why did the residents
because
putting her back in office?
Because I don't know if they're going to put her back in office. Because she sits there, she smiles, she takes pictures, and she does nothing with anybody. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she plays
it safe.
Yeah, she plays it safe, and she's like a sheep in wolf's clothing. No, a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Nobody really knows about her. She doesn't stand for anything. She doesn't come out against anything. She doesn't come out for anything. I mean, just watch any of her her council meetings.
So she plays it safe, doesn't pick a side, stays neutral, stays out of the fight, so that she can never be held accountable for anything.
Correct.
Okay.
And she backs her friends. I mean, her BFF is vice mayor. She backed her BFF, so they wouldn't disagree with her. She backed Cody.
Now you say BFF. Are you being
BFF?
Sorry, are you being
best
sarcastic?
Friend forever.
No, I get the best friend forever. But
am I being sarcastic? No, they're really
okay,
yeah. I mean, if you look literally looked at her Facebook page, there's like lots of pictures of those two together.
Okay. All right.
I mean, and she doesn't want anybody to disagree with her. She can't have any dissension. She can't have anybody. I mean, it's almost like she's borderline communist, because the second there's any dissension on the council, anybody wants, transparency. Anybody wants the access to information. What happens is she's been successful to get them not to get elected. I mean, to make sure they're not elected again. She's just a bad person all the way around, and people don't know that. And eventually, people are starting, because I run polls, people are starting to realize what she's all about.
So what do you hope to happen? What's your agenda? What's the message that you're trying to?
What my agenda is to get people to really look at her record, see what she's done that actually benefits the residents of Palmetto Bay. I mean, I could take all this, okay, if she actually sat there and moved the village of Palmetto Bay, to the benefit of the residents, moved it forward, okay. But she has done nothing but bring litigation to the village. I mean, it's crazy what's been going on since she's been in office.
Has she not done anything helpful?
Yeah, she's taken a lot of selfies and given out a lot of proclamations. She's given out more proclamations in the last 3.5 years, than the whole village did in the 20-year history. Because that's the way that's the way that she thinks she's gonna get reelected. A lot of pictures, a lot of proclamations, a lot of yada boy, good boy and stuff like that, when she's in the meantime of destroying the village. Absolutely destroying the village of Palmetto Bay. It's just the way it is. I mean, she's got to go. We got to get her out of office so we can move this village forward, or the village of Palmetto Bay forward.
Does she have a chance to redeem herself, you think?
I don't know. She's dug herself she's got no morals or principles. She's dug herself such a huge hole.
Okay. No.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, she's got a lot of people that back her. Oh, that's not going to work. Sorry, guys. My son's calling me on the phone. My oldest son. So let's talk about, are we on track?
We are on track.
Oh, we're on track. Good deal. I can only talk about Village Palmetto Bay for 20 minutes. That's what I was told today. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis. So Ron DeSantis signed a bill Okay, that makes it unlawful for protests outside private residencies.
I'm for it.
Yeah, you're for it. Of course you are, because
Yeah.
I'm taking the opposing view.
Yeah.
I've seen that. By the way, I've seen that. By the way, Ron DeSantis, like I said, Ron DeSantis to me has done some things that I can appreciate, some things I don't. I don't like, and what's interesting is he's as far right as you can get. What's interesting is he's done. I mean, usually the far right are not environmentally friendly, but he actually is, and I can appreciate that. I think what he's done, and I think it will be overturned, and I mean, I have no doubt in my mind it will be overturned, is to squash the First Amendment.
Yeah, but I think you're going a little too far. Is it really squashing the First Amendment,
Yes.
which is also protecting individuals' rights?
Listen, it's not private property. I don't think that people should be allowed on private property to sit there and protest. Okay, but it's public property. If somebody wants to go out in front of a street or something like that and protest, there are enough. There's enough stopgaps to make sure that violence doesn't happen.
Okay,
And-
yeah, but you're saying
okay.
violence, but let's be honest here. Let's put yourself in someone's shoes. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and I'm not saying what somebody does, maybe they deserve it or not. It's not my place.
Yeah.
But for people to just stand there, yes, it's public property, but to block a public street or to be in a driveway or to be to really destroying someone's life, it could be their family, it could be their children, right?
Okay,
Do you think
but
that's
you got
really
to,
fair?
but you have to go through. It's not like, yeah. First of all, I know in some of these municipalities, there's more than 20 people. You got to get a permit. You got to go to a police department. You got to get a permit, and then you might have to hire police officers to watch you. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to sit there on private property and you want to gather, okay, it's in the Constitution. You may say no, it's not right. Right? You may say, no, that's ridiculous. What you're doing is you're bothering the neighbors, you're bothering the person's kids or family or something like that. But people have a right to protest, and they have a right to protest in groups, right? So here you go.
So
with
you're
the
promoting
governor.
the mob mentality.
I'm not promoting the mob mentality. I'm saying that the mob mentality has a right to be there because it's in the First Amendment.
Even if it's used for malice and for the wrong purposes.
Well, I happen to think that there's a lot of time that protests are used for malice. But who's going to sit there and say this is for malice and this isn't for malice?
Okay, well,
okay. If it's for malice, you call the police, right? So my problem is nobody tried to stop protests of anti-abortion activists, right? So
I knew you were going to go there.
So when anti-abortion, that's because you're reading my notes. But anti-abortion activists have been protesting in front of doctors' houses and clinics for years, and nobody sat there and said, "Oh, let's stop the protests." A matter of fact, they've given authorization to protest, right? So now the shoe's on the other foot, and you may have pro-abortion, okay, or pro-choice, not pro-abortion, because I don't think people that are pro-choice are pro-abortion. Activists that want to sit there and protest in front of judges' houses or in front of private residences or in front of politicians. And by the way, politicians, I think it's great that you protest in front of politicians' houses, because if not, your voice is not going to get heard.
Okay, so politicians are slightly different. I mean, you chose when you become an elected public official,
Mm-hmm.
it comes with the territory, right? And well, first of all, I mean, let's go back to this, because now I almost feel like you're holding DeSantis accountable for all the wackos that were against abortion.
I'm not.
I mean,
I'm not holding him responsible. I'm just saying that if you're gonna,
you're comparing this bill to, and going back and saying, oh well, the right wing fanatic anti-abortion activists, no one stopped them, and it's almost insinuating that DeSantis should have stopped them at that time. And so, maybe I mean, if you correct the scenario today, and it's just
but you can't correct the scenario because it's in the Constitution. You have a right. Have you ever read the First Amendment? Yeah. You have a right to gather. You have a right to protest. It doesn't say, oh, you can't do it in front of somebody's house. Well, okay, it gives you an overall right to sit there in public property to gather and protest. And you can't sit there and say, oh, this street, you can't do it on the street anymore because it's in front of somebody's house. That's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution gives you the right to protest. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that. I think that one of the coolest things about the USA is the First Amendment, but that that also comes with
There's the but. I like the but.
It comes with its problems, right? Because you're giving a voice to all these people who might have bad intentions and who might fall into this mob mentality.
What about the right of the individual
Okay,
person?
wait. It all
difficult,
comes with
right?
problems, though. But it all comes with problems. The Second Amendment, which I'm a firm believer is, comes with problems that some whack job is going to get a hold of a gun. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because you got some nut job with a gun. I am firmly believe in the Second Amendment, just like I firmly believe in the First Amendment. There are problems. So what you got to do is tackle the problems. So you can't sit there and tackle the problems by saying, okay, nobody can protest. If I want to sit there and protest in front of Mayor Cunningham's house, okay, or in front of Steve Cody's house, I should have the right to do it.
Okay. So this is a personal issue.
No, this isn't no, but I'm just saying.
You want to go
okay,
personally.
listen, if I want to do it in front of Ron DeSantis' house, okay, I should be able to do it. These people knew what they got themselves involved in.
Yeah. Well, again, if you're an elected official, there's definitely got to be some level.
Well, let me ask you a question. Who do you think?
Well, I was on here. It was a couple shows ago. We were talking about cancel culture, right?
Yes.
And I probably going to use that as a scenario of mine, right? So let's say you say something in the public spotlight, and I see this happening to a lot of folks, and I'm not going to say I agree with them, and I hear people saying a lot of stupid things on social media that I think are pretty asinine and definitely don't agree with. But at the same time, I don't promote a mob mentality where they go in front of their homes and they cause problems and they embarrass them and they're purposely trying to cause harm to them, right? I don't think. Well,
I mean, harm is a different thing. But let me ask you a question. You have a union, okay, and you have a president of a corporation, and the president of the corporation sits there, personally says, okay, we're not going to do work with unions anymore. We're firing all the union employees. Should you not have the right as a member of the union to sit there and protest in front of this guy's house? Come on. I mean, that's the basic cornerstone of our country. And what he did by a stroke of the pen is take away our right for freedom of speech and freedom to gather. You can't do that. You just can't. And I'm going to tell you something. Bottom dollar is that this gets overturned. And it goes from a regular judge to the 3rd District DA here to the Supreme Court. There's no way in hell what he signed is.
And to the Supreme, you said it's going to go to the Supreme Court, but which way do you think the Supreme Court's going to?
I don't see the Supreme Court permitting this. I mean, I don't care how far. I don't care how Republican or Democrat you are. There's no way in hell that they're going to say they can strike down something that is given to you. Okay, alien rights in the Constitution. Okay. I just don't believe.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think there should be any rights for the individual, or are you saying that it should be a blanket First Amendment? Hey, I can go and do whatever I want.
No, I think on private property. I think on private property,
I can set up a tent inside public property. I can.
Well, first of all, you're not going to set up a tent. I think that well,
where do we draw the line? And that's my problem. I guess my problem is
you're not going to set up a tent because you need water, you need electricity. I mean, there are some. See, you want to take it to the other extreme too, right? I'm talking to you about a 2, 3 hour, 4 hour.
Well, because you're being rational. Yeah. See, I think that's the problem, David. I think you're being rational and you're using a rational argument because you're a rational person and you're a rational human being, and you're using it under the pretenses and those scenarios that would justify the action, right? Now, what you're not taking into consideration is a significant amount of times where people are using these loopholes, they're using these laws to harass, to intimidate, shut people down.
But any rally, okay, any rally or any kind of group that gets together is used to intimidate or educate or something. I mean, but let me ask you a question.
Intimidate and educate
okay. Well,
it's a pretty
I mean, I know, but different people do different things. But anytime you get a bunch of people together, okay, for a rally, it's to send a message out. And I got to tell you something. So this is they've had two rallies or two. I'm sorry, they've had two protests. I don't mean rally, but 2 protests in Village Palmetto Bay the last 2 years at the state of the village. Okay, to say we want a bridge on 87th Avenue. Okay, and they've had a lot of homeowners and a lot of kids, and they all had signs and stuff like that in front of the state of the village. Are they going to misuse this law now and say that, okay, since it's a state of the village, that you can't have You can't have these protests. I mean, how far are they going to take it? I just listen. I'm telling you right now. I'm so pro.
I can understand your fear.
I'm so pro First Amendment that and how many people, if anything, there's how many people have actually been hurt, okay, during this in front of somebody's house. Now there've been a lot of things not in front of people's houses in downtown areas. I mean, the protests have gotten out of hand, but you've really never heard of anything in front of somebody's house where somebody's been injured. I mean, you're right. There is a chance for mob mentality. But when you start doing stuff like this, what he did, what you're turning into Russia or China. Okay. I mean, you're taking it and you're turning Florida into a communist state.
I can respect your fears. I can respect your position because I do understand is where do you draw the line, right? I think that's where I understand your fears are. Right?
Well, I think, like I said, in some of these municipalities, if you have 10 or you have 20 people, you have to go and get a permit for the protests. I think, and then they know, okay, that if you have 20 people, that it could be an issue, but at least the police are aware of it. I mean, as long as the police are aware of it, what's the issue?
Well, okay, so you're saying, and I'm bringing up these hypothetical situations.
No, I got it.
But if I go through the permit and I go through the process and I got police presence and now I got 50 people outside of David Singer's home because I don't agree with his views on Steve Cody because I think his Facebook posts and memes are hilarious. And my sole intention is to make David's life a living hell. And I'm going to make sure that every day I get 50 people gathered outside your door.
It's not outside the door. It's on the street. Okay. And by the way,
you live in a small apartment with a 4-foot driveway. All right.
Okay. There's sound. Wait. Okay. So there's sound ordinances. Okay. There's blocking traffic ordinances. You can't block traffic. Although in Dade County, okay, it's against the law. Every third Thursday, okay, of the month, they have these people on motorcycles and 3-wheelers and everything else going up and down US 1, going up and down, 95. They do nothing to arrest these people.
Is that a South Florida thing, by the way, or does that happen in all cities?
Do you know anything about that?
I have no idea.
Okay, have you seen it?
I've definitely seen some idiots on the road.
I mean, no, but has to be about.
Why don't you explain to the audience? Because I'm not sure everybody knows what we're talking about.
In Dade County and in downtown Miami, you have these idiots who are not only jeopardizing their lives, but they're jeopardizing other people in cars' lives. Okay, riding around on their motorcycles, must be 100 of them, just clogging up traffic, speeding, and everything else, and you never see the police going after them.
They're doing some cool wheelies too.
They're. I mean, listen, if it was at a show, I'd probably go watch it.
I know it's so
okay,
cool, but it's
very cool.
Place.
But honestly, is US 1 or 95 or downtown Miami or through somebody or through 152nd Street where I live?
I think the point is David is saying if I was to go ahead and do that down US 1 tomorrow, I would definitely be getting pulled over and sent to jail.
No. What I'm saying is if it was a protest, okay, that would no. I mean, the fact of the matter is those people should be arrested. I think, and they don't do anything about it.
So why do they get a pass?
But why do they get a pass? And now you're going to sit there and say, oh, if you're protesting and you're peaceful protesters, okay, in front of somebody's house, you're going to be arrested. You're allowed to be warned once, and then you get arrested.
Well, listen, I think it's like everything else. We can't take a hard stance left or right. I mean, there's got to be some kind of middle of the road, right? You got to protect the individual rights. You got to protect people from cancel culture. We talked about this in the other previous show. What do you do for the folks that just want to voice an opinion that somebody else doesn't agree to, and now they're going to get this? They're going to get a backlash, and people just want to make their lives miserable. There's got to be some protection for them, is all I'm saying. And I see this also. That sometimes there's protests now. I mean, anybody who lives in South Florida, you know how bad the traffic here is.
Okay, but don't you understand that Ron DeSantis just brought cancel culture to Florida by signing that bill? He just basically said, okay, this is my new cancel culture. Okay, you cannot protest in front of somebody's house. That's exactly what he did, because we don't like we don't know what you're going to say, but we certainly don't like it.
Well, I think he's trying to protect the individual.
I mean, you could sit there and it could be somebody who slaughters dogs, okay, or animals or something, and the whole neighborhood are dog lovers, okay? I think the average person should have the right to protest that he's slaughtering dogs is against the law. But I mean, the average person should have a right to let their voices be known if it's on public property. We're not saying go into and knock on the guy's door and shoot him with a gun, but the average person should have the right to tell this guy, okay, you should not be doing this. This is not the way you should be acting.
At what point does it now become abusive? And at what point does it now become an impediment of the other person's rights?
Yeah, I don't. I don't have an answer.
Well, and I think that's that's my issue here is that you're saying it as a matter of absolute fact, and I'm saying it's not that easy and it's not that clear. And I think that I think that DeSantis's intent here was the right intent. I think maybe I can agree that the execution of it is a little bit harsh because it may have some repercussions, right? But for the folks who do have a valid opinion, who are trying to be responsible and do it correctly, I think that he was trying to solve a problem that does exist, and I think people do abuse the power.
What problem is he trying to solve? Explain to me what problem he's trying to solve, because he wrote this bill. Okay, he signed this bill after people were protesting in front of the Supreme Court's houses, justices' houses. That's when that's what this bill was.
Yeah,
he signed a bill after that. And you know what? I got to tell you something. We're going to get into this in a second, but those judges should be made perfectly aware of the fact that people don't appreciate them overturning Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, but I think we'll get into that. But I think you actually helped prove my argument. So thank you for that, David.
Why did I help you prove? Why did I help you improve your argument? Because a judge shouldn't know.
Well, no. So okay. So now you're basically telling me that the possible voice of a few, a few loud voices and a few potentially obnoxious voices.
But because you're obnoxious,
who are going to be belligerent are going to, because they're going to show up every day, because they're going to harass, because they're going to abuse the First Amendment. Now their potentially minority voice is going to gain a majority control because they're the ones out there who are trolling.
I don't think you can abuse. I don't think you can. I don't think you can abuse the First Amendment.
I'm saying it's possible.
I just don't think so.
Maybe, and I've seen this happen from time to time, and I've seen politicians and I've seen other elected officials get peer pressured into making certain decisions because there's a minority voice that's
it happens happens. It happens all the time.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're called NIMBYs. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. They're NIMBYs. They attack. They go to every single meeting. I hate to default to Palmetto Bay, but it's the only thing I know at this point since I was on the council. You got 5 or 6 people in Palmetto Bay that think they can run Palmetto Bay. I mean, they're the ones that are whispering in the council's ear saying, you need to do this or we're not going to back you on the next election. But I got to tell you something. But if you have any kind of morals, you don't sit there and you don't do it.
It's easier said than done. But if you have these folks at your doorstep every day chanting slogans and being disruptive, at some point in time, I can understand why any normal person
not at your door.
It's just not.
They're not at your door. You're talking about private property. They're not at your door.
That's close enough. You're trying to say that it's at the end of the driveway.
Listen, nobody tried to nobody tried to pass this while anti-abortion activists were shooting doctors. It's just, let's call it what it is. They weren't worried about it. They weren't worried about it.
If he was governor at the time and he was passing this bill,
I don't know. He's pretty far right. And by the way,
I absolutely think that there should be a bipartisan standard. If you're going to apply laws and rules to one side, you should apply them equally.
Oh, I agree with that 100%.
Well, blaming DeSantis for the abortion wackos, I don't think is
no. I don't know.
Not stopping the abortion wackos.
No, and I gotta, it's.
I know he's using it,
and like I said, I'm, the guy scares me because he's really, really far to the right. That's why I was shocked when when the mayor actually went there. But at least he works for United Teachers of Dade.
But at least he stands for something, as opposed to your favorite.
Yeah, that's true.
So he does
stand for something.
You got to respect him.
Listen, let me tell you something. When he first came into office, I was so impressed because he really tried to clean up, the Everglades and stuff like that. And that's I'm an environmentalist at heart.
Listen, I'm the one that jokes around with the comedians that say, hey, we talk about you got to save the planet. And I always laugh because it's really saving ourselves. I think the planet's going to be just fine without us.
The planet will be. Let me tell you something. When we're all dead and gone, the planet will repair itself. Yeah. And basically, what's going to happen is the humanity will have destroyed itself if you leave it to Russia anyway. And the planet will repair itself, and there'll be something else that
Yeah, well,
comes out of the
again,
woods.
I know that was
Yeah.
a complete sidebar, but
No, I
just,
know. I don't
just
mind
find it
sidebars.
funny that people talk
No,
about
I mean, first they were
save- yeah,
dinosaurs.
save the planet.
First they were dinosaurs, and they were humans. And the way mankind's going, the plant, we're not going to be around.
Yeah.
We're not going to be around much longer, which might be a good thing for the planet, actually. If you really care about the planet, it's unfortunately for humanity, but I mean, humanity, humanity by itself has done no justice to this planet.
Well,
I mean, honestly. So let's talk about Roe versus Wade. Okay, you have something that was, ooh, there you go.
yeah.
Let's listen. You want me? Give me your opinion. I'm going to give you my opinion. Okay, here we go.
He's turned the tables on.
Yeah,
him.
this is
He's turned the tables on. him.
Okay.
That was a good one.
Beautiful. What
Yeah.
are your views on abortion?
Okay.
Greatest question.
He's putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, well, I'm gonna. And this is not to deflect, but I think that.
Oh no, you can't deflect. This is a straight
I'm not
up
gonna
question.
deflect. No, I'm not gonna deflect. I'll tell you my
Yeah.
personal opinion. I think if we live in a so-called democratic country where there's the voice of the people and it's the
Mhm.
opinion of the people that count,
Mhm.
I believe in certain matters it should be a majority vote by the people. That's my personal opinion.
But should it be done state by state, or
I
are
like
you a federalist?
I like the idea of
Yeah.
state by state.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of do like the idea of state by state because it gives people choice, and I think that also gives. I believe in autonomy. In general, my belief is small government, not a lot of oversight. So generally speaking, I don't believe in it. I like the idea of states governing themselves. I like the idea that if there is a state where the majority of the people, and I'm not saying that to say,
Yeah.
again, if you ask me fundamentally what I personally believe in, because I'm not going to skirt the subject because I know how you feel about people who don't stand for anything.
Yeah.
So I will gladly tell you my opinion. I personally don't like abortion. I don't think it should be used as a form of contraceptive. I do believe it's a life. I respect all life.
Mhm.
However, at the same time, I don't feel that it's my job or it's my duty, or I don't have the right
Mhm.
to condemn someone else or tell them what's right or wrong in this one morally. But I have my personal opinions about it. I'm really against it. I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't think that anybody should be shunned for doing it. But I would never go in and try to tell somebody that it's right or wrong, or tell them to try to control how they want to treat their body. That's my personal opinion. But
we might actually almost agree on this one subject. Can I see if anybody sent any emails, by the way?
Let's check it out.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, we've got some stuff. We got Patrick Deary saying, how can he legally remain in office? I assume he's talking about DeSantis.
Oh yeah. We're not going to even mention Gary Pastorelli because that's somebody else who's a whack job in Palmetto Bay. Anyway, so let's talk about, okay, so my stance on abortion, okay, and honestly, I believe in a woman's right to choose. I don't think anybody is pro-abortion, but I think there should be some cutoff date, where you just can't have, unless it's for the health of the mother. It's for the health of it's if you were raped, there was incest around. The problem is that what they're trying to do is paint abortion with one broad brush, right? And they're trying to make it, if you make it illegal. So you have a 16-year-old kid that is raped, and you're the parent of this poor girl, okay, and she gets pregnant, and now she can't have an abortion. I mean, or her uncle, I guess incest is the same thing as raped, or being raped, and she can't have an abortion. You can't brush this whole. You can't just brush abortion with just one paintbrush. I mean, there's so many different circumstances that can happen. And I know you have daughters, right?
I have a daughter.
Okay. So if she was raped and she didn't want to carry the baby to term, I mean, would your views change?
Well,
I mean, would you suggest she had one?
I would support her in a decision.
Yeah.
At the same time, I could argue that you never know who that unborn child is going to be. It could be the next person that cures cancer. It
could also be the next Hitler.
Yeah, it could be. But again, I'm also a firm believer of that. I don't like to play God, right? And I take this opinion into capital punishment as well. Because as much as I think that there's people who should be killed
Yeah.
and who should be swept off the face of the earth, morally, I also don't feel that I have the authority as a human being to make that kind of decision. I don't like to play God. So fundamentally, I don't support it, but again, at the same time, I don't believe that we have the right. So for my daughter, you made it a personal question. I don't mind answering it.
Yeah.
I would support them in their decision. I would make sure that they thought real hard, long and hard about it. And if that was their final decision, I would support it. But I would probably guide them on alternative options, right? I would make them feel comfortable that that's not the only solution. And that at the same time, that life that was created, it's not their fault that that's how they were conceived, right? I would make sure that they felt like, listen, it's not, let me put it this way, it's not the baby's fault that they were the product of some kind of rape or incest. That's all I'm trying to say. So I don't want to blame the baby and say we have to abort it
it's not,
because it was a rape.
Yeah, but
thank you, Sadim, for agreeing with me on that one. I appreciate the nod back.
So
there.
no, I mean, I know my problem is you got the majority of people that are making this decision, okay, or who are I hate to claim this because it's interesting is white men who feel that they can, who feel that they want to control women's bodies, right? That's what you hear. So I would never ever try to sit there and make a decision for somebody else unless there was some sort of there needs to be a cutoff date. I agree that there needs to be a cutoff date. You know what the cutoff date is? I'm not intelligent enough to even kind of ponder what the cutoff date should be. I think a lot of states there are a cutoff date, except if you find out that the child is going to be mentally deficient or something, and you don't have. Listen, it's hard enough. It's hard enough.
You just brought up a great point. Now we can do tests. I mean, I don't know if you know, but
I know. But even if you have a test, the fact of the matter is, if you make abortion illegal, okay, and like I said, nobody is pro-abortion; they're pro-choice. I've never met anybody. I've met a lot of people. I've never met anybody who says, "Oh yeah, abortion is great." I mean, it's irresponsible to say that.
Well, what about the folks that use it as a form of contraceptive?
I think that's ridiculous too. I mean, I'll give you that one. But there's some times where I think that it's hard enough to have a child that you want, right? I mean, everybody who watches this should probably has children. It's so hard to have children that you want. Can you imagine having a child that you don't want? I mean, it's what I find is interesting is a lot of people that are anti-abortion are also anti-education, anti-healthcare, anti-mental health. They don't want to feed or pay for a roof over these kids' heads. I mean, you have a lot of people that don't want to pay taxes, but
I'm going to bring up, and again, for those of you who live in Florida, especially South Florida, if you're driving down the Turnpike, you'll see there's a lot of anti-abortion signs, right? So
all over the place.
Yeah, we see them. And I do see some, in all fairness, that says, hey, you have options, we'll help you. So I do want to say that some of these organizations, I don't want to necessarily say all of them say, hey, you have to have the baby, that's your problem. I do some of these, again, how valid are they and how much help they'll provide, I don't know. But I've seen organizations say, hey, we'll help you, right? We're here to help if you choose to have the child. So I don't want to necessarily throw a blanket statement with that.
No, but well. I'm sure they will help have the child. Yeah. But after the child's born, I don't see a lot. Yeah, you're on your own. And you see it a lot from these right-wing Republicans that they want you to have the child, but once the child's born, they're like, okay, it's up to you to educate and feed because we don't want to pay more in taxes. Yeah. Right. And then you got to figure what's going to happen to these kids if they're born to families that really don't want them. Who's going to follow up to them? Who's going to make sure they're safe? Okay. Who's going to protect these kids from parents? And you see it every day in the newspaper. There are parents who beat their kids all the time.
I think what David is saying, and I have to agree with him, is you can't force somebody to have a kid that doesn't want a kid. Because it's ultimately the kid's going to suffer the consequences.
And you want to know something? The kid could end up being beaten and stuff like that. You don't know what the head. I mean, if you have a child and you don't want a child, you are going. It's like you're going to sit there and abuse the kid. Yeah.
No,
right.
I have to agree.
And there's nobody there to protect these kids. Yeah. Even times where there are.
You love your child. They
families that want children.
It's a challenge.
You still have people that beat the kids, or you read it all every day in the newspaper. You think that child services does a good job in this state.
Oh, they're not gonna.
They're underpaid, they're overworked, and they can't make sure that all the children are safe, right? So who's going to make sure that these kids have education, are fed, have a roof over their head? But they don't. What I'm saying is they care about life until the mother gives birth, and then they don't give a shit anymore.
Well,
okay?
I don't think it's,
or not all of them. Okay,
I don't think it's all of them.
I don't want to brush everybody. Brush. Okay,
I get what you're saying. I think they're not thinking down the road as, okay, great, this child is born. Now what? And now they're born into a family that never wanted them, has resentment towards them. What's going to happen in those scenarios? So, like, I guess, like, going back to your original question, do I think that people should have a choice? Yes, I do. Right. I don't think that.
But do you think that I would assume that, like I do? I think there should be a time limit.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, you can't sit there, and I think there is a time limit.
Well,
but I don't know what that.
But I think fundamentally, I think
think
morally, there should be a lot more just training and education around the subjects as a whole, right?
Look, if it was up to me, everybody who had a kid would have to go through some sort of training class and have a license to have a kid. I mean, honestly, having a kid is real. I mean, I've raised 3 of them. It's very difficult, and some people don't have the ability to do that because they don't understand. I tell all my friends that used to tell all my friends are a little older now, that your whole life's going to change, right? Your whole life changes when you have a child. Yeah. Nobody believed that until they had the kid. And then they come back and go, oh my God, you are so right. You just can't.
I was one of those. Yes.
You know, you can't just drop everything. You can't say, okay, I'm going to go out to dinner tonight. Okay. Oh, that's right. I have a baby. I can't go out to dinner tonight. I got to get a babysitter. I'm going to go run to the store and get eggs and bread. Oh, I can't do that because I have a baby. Your whole life changes once you have a child.
It's a big commitment.
Right? No, it's a huge commitment. And there are a lot of people that get pregnant.
And there's no off switch.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that get pregnant and don't want that responsibility. So what happens to the child? Okay. What happens? Do these people take their frustrations out on the child?
Oh,
is there a way is there money to educate the child? Is there money to raise the child? Can you put a roof over the child's head?
I'm gonna support your comment here. Let's say, for example, somebody who's addicted to drugs or somebody who's not in a situation to take care of themselves. They get pregnant. What happens? And I mean, someone who's not fit to I mean, who needs help.
And years and years, and since the Clinton administration, social services budget has been cut and cut and cut and cut. And I don't think our social services today are where they were 20 years ago. I mean, I just think, and you can't, it's so hard today because of inflation and everything else. And even before inflation, to live and take care of yourself. Now you're going to take care of a baby that you don't really want. Yeah, I mean, I guess there is the other fact that you give the baby up for adoption. Yeah. I guess you could do that. Well, but it's just,
that's kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say is that abortion shouldn't be the first step. That's at least my personal opinion. Abortion shouldn't be the go-to answer for everything. All right, abortion. Hey, I don't want to have a baby abortion.
How about the pill after?
I have an issue with that also. I think that people should be taught to be responsible. I think it really first starts with being responsible.
Well, how responsible were you at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20?
Well,
I can tell you that my friends weren't responsible. We weren't thinking. I mean, we were thinking like kids. We weren't thinking about adults. We were thinking about what could we get away with that our parents couldn't catch us.
Yeah, but that's what I think. I was the same way.
And by the way, nobody in this country is responsible. Nobody in this country actually sits there and says, "I'm sorry, it was my fault." Nobody's willing to take responsibility in this country. That's just the way this country is right now.
Because we're also taught that if you say, I'm sorry, it's a sign of weakness. You can't apologize. You can't accept that you made it.
Nobody accepts responsibility. Everybody has to blame. Everybody has to blame everybody else but themselves. People who don't have jobs right now, people, they're always looking for somebody else to blame instead of taking personal responsibility for themselves. And I got to have a program on that because I got to tell you something. Where we were in the 50s, is so dramatically changed to where we are today as far as personal responsibility. And by the way, I was not born in the 50s. I may look that old, but I'm not that old. But everybody wants to blame everybody else. This country takes no personal responsibility for their own actions. None.
But the fundamental question is, why do they want to ban abortion?
Why do you want to ban it? I mean, I think you ban abortion because of your political views and your religious views. I just can't believe that they're going to sit there and just totally. And this is, by the way, this conversation is based on what was leaked.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think
Okay.
that's, yeah. So maybe you want to give that disclaimer. First.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't know what is actually going to be come out of the Supreme Court, but I'm taking what was leaked as verbatim. So we'll see. But I mean, to sit there in broad stroke and just cut and just completely wipe out how many years is 72, 82, 92? It's 50 years, right? Somewhere around there.
Well, I think you said something that was very important to me, which was the whole biblical aspect of it.
Yeah.
And
by the way, there's supposed to be separation of church and state, but apparently the apparently the Supreme Court doesn't know that.
Well, no, but I find it contradictory even from a biblical perspective. I mean, the whole idea of that, again, we as human beings, and I don't like to use the word man because it's man, men and women. So when you say, "Oh, we as man," I think it's an outdated term. But we as people, if you're a person of faith, it's not our responsibility to judge and to try to enforce laws, right? We're here to live our lives and to grow as individuals and spirits and to become as. And that's why, again, I have that problem, that moral dilemma with capital punishment. As much as I think people deserve it, I
don't necessarily believe in capital punishment, but that's for another show.
Yeah.
Let me get one question on here because Patrick wrote this a while ago. He says, "How can Steve Cody legally remain in public office when he has apparently evaded paying federal income taxes, moral turpitude?" As you can see, on any level at all in politics, there is no morals. I think, or a lack of morals with the majority of politicians. And what's crazy now is if you look at Facebook, 3/4 of Facebook is a bunch of politicians taking pictures to make people feel good. It has nothing to do with what they've done in office. It's basically taking pictures of you and me.
I think that's why the youth have already left Facebook and no longer use it. So
I don't blame them, actually. But I mean, that's what they used to get elected now. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing to me how Facebook first went from the kids to the adults, and now it's politicians sitting there doing every other Facebook post that pops up is a politician taking a picture, okay? Because they think it's like the old kissing the babies in the 20s or 30s. It's like that's the way the politicians are going to sit there and think they're going to get reelected. As far as Steve Cody, the guy should not be in public office. The guy should probably be in jail. Personally, my personal feelings. I guess everybody's going to figure that out one day. Anything else?
see that. That's incredible.
I know my eyes are pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
But I think that's thanks, Patrick, for sending in that question. I'm amazed that he can be in public office since his house is like, what's funny is he's gone through his foreclosure. He's been turned down twice now, and now he's going to the 3rd District Court of Appeals to get his foreclosure reversed. And he sent in an appeal to a third District Court of Appeals, and he didn't send in a check. So they wrote him. They say, "We're turning down this appeal unless you send in money." The guy doesn't have any money, and this poor bank. Steve Cody's living off the system. This poor bank has to pay attorneys, right? You got this guy who hasn't had a job in 8 years. He's living off the damn system. Okay, playing a game. Hasn't paid taxes. Hasn't paid real estate taxes. Meanwhile, he voted to increase the taxes on all the residents in Palmetto Bay. I mean,
So basically, you're agreeing with me now of how people take advantage of the laws and the loopholes.
Oh no,
Okay.
this guy has seriously taken advantage of the whole system, but he knows how to take advantage of the system because he's an ex attorney.
That's why I was supporting DeSantis' right to protect the people from
okay, but there has to be a different right.
No, yeah,
right. There has to be a different right. So you sit there and you make it where if you're going to sit there,
but that was my point.
So you sit there and you sit there literally and you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? You sit there and go, okay, if you're going to sit there and have in front of somebody's house, a protest, you gotta hire, and you're over 20 people, you gotta hire a police officer. Okay, you hire a police officer, or you sign a form or something like that. That's a lot better than saying, okay, there's going to be no protests in front of politicians or judges' house. I mean, it just gives you, because once again, you're not totally limiting free speech.
Well, I got the notice that we're running out of time.
Oh, are we running out of time? Oh, we are running out of time. That went fast. Wow. Amazing. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. remember, we'll be we're doing the show from the bunker because of threats that have been made by Steve Cody to my employer and myself.
Steve Cody, if you're
And,
watching this, more memes, please.
More memes. Steve, anytime you talk about me on Facebook, it helps out my it helps out my band
I don't know
and it
about-
helps out my show.
I don't
So
know about
knock yourself
I
out.
don't know about David, but I appreciated the meme.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious.
But it doesn't look like me. He's not an he thinks he's an artist. He's not an artist. Anyway, so yeah, keep the memes going. Just try to take my picture and do a better job in making me look like myself in the memes. Anyway, thanks for everybody who's joining us next week. I believe I will have a representative from Coconut Grove on who will tell us what is going on in Coconut Grove, all the developments, all the buildings, and all the activities here. So thanks for joining us. Peace out, and everybody stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks for having me back, David.
Anytime.